15.4 is multiplying and dividing radical expressions. In 15.4, what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be multiplying our expressions and simplifying at the end. So I look at the first problem here. I have the square root of 8 times the square root of 2. Because they both have square roots, I can multiply the numbers on the inside. So 8 times 2 is 16. And we know the square root of 16 is just 4. Okay, going on to the next problem. I have the square root of 3 times the square root of 12. Well, 3 times 12 is 36. And the square root of 36 is 6. I want you to notice the next two problems. The next two problems have the square root of 6 all squared. Now remember what it means to square something. It means to multiply it by itself. If I multiply the square root of 6 times the square root of 6, that in fact gives me the square root of 36, which we just said was 6. In the next problem, I'll do it the same way. The square root of 10 squared means the square root of 10 times the square root of 10, the square root of 100, and we know the square root of 100 is 10. If I look at these last two problems that we just did here, I want you to notice what my answer ends up being at the end. So if we have the square root of 6 squared, our answer is just 6. And if we have the square root of 10 squared, our answer is just 10. Essentially what is happening is the square and the square root are canceling each other out, and we're just ending up with the number that's on the inside. Okay, if I do the same sort of rule here, I want you to notice this one's slightly different. What I have is 2 square root of 5 squared, so that means 2 square root of 5 times another 2 square root of 5. Since these numbers are on the outside, I'm going to multiply them together. That's 4. Since these numbers here are on the inside, I'll multiply those two numbers together. That's 25. So 4 times the square root of 25 is just 5. That ends up being 20. So if I'm doing a problem like this, one thing that I'm going to do is the number that's on the outside, which is 2, is going to be squared. There's my 4. The square and the square root are going to cancel each other out, and I'm still going to have my 5, and I multiply them together, and there's my 20. All right. So let's take a look at the next problem that I have here, which is the square root of 3x to the 5th times the square root of 6x. Okay, so 3 times 6 is going to leave me with 18. X to the 5 and another x is going to leave me with x to the 6. Now remember, I want to break down my number 18. So 18, I'm going to think of that as, let me erase that real quick. Let's see, here we go. Why is it not erasing? Okay, here we go. Alright, so 18, I'm going to think about that as 9 and 2. 9 I can break down into 3 and 3. Remember, the square root means I'm getting a pair. So I have the number 3 coming outside. That 2 has to go back and stay on the inside. Remember, we're going to take our exponent here, we're going to divide it by 2. So 3 divided by 2, or 6 divided by 2, is 3. And here's my answer. 3x to the 3rd times the square root of 2. Okay. Let's try the next one. We'll go about it exactly the same way. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'll multiply my numbers on the inside. So 21 times 3 should give me 63. Y to the 8th. Okay. Now, when I think of the number 63, 63 makes me think of 9 and 7. And 9 is 3 and 3. So I know the number 3 is going to come out, and I know the number 7 is going to stay in. Again, I'm going to take my exponent and divide it by 2. So y to the 8th, if I take that 8 and divide it by 2, that should give me y to the 4th. And there's my answer there. Okay, continuing. So now we have divide and simplify. So what I want to point out here in these problems, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to think about this as one big fraction. 32 divided by 2, and then we'll take the square root. Well, 32 divided by 2 is 16, and I know the square root of 16 is 4. Same thing here, 21 divided by 3. Well, 21 divided by 3 is 7. Now, 7 I can't break down, so my answer will just stay as the square root of 7. Okay. All right, here I have 90 divided by 5. Okay. And if I take my calculator, let's see. Here we go. So if I go 90 divided by 5, that gives me 18. So now I have the square root of 18. Again, I'm over here on the side. I'm going to think of 18. I can think about it as 3 times 6. I can think of that 6 as 3 times 2. Notice we have a pair of the number 3's. The number that I don't have paired up is the number 2, and so that number stays on the inside. All right? So the next one here, I have 96 divided by 8. 96 divided by 8. Okay. So again, I'm going to take my calculator one last time, and I'll take 96 and I'll divide it by 8. That's given me 12. Okay. So now I have the square root of 12. Okay. Again, I'll do this over here on the side. 12 is 2 times 6. 6 is 2 times 3. So I have a pair of the number 2's. That comes outside, and the one that I don't have paired up, the number 3, has to go back on the inside. All right. So let's try these next two here. Again, a big square root, 75y to the 5th over 3y. Okay. So let's see. 3 goes into 75 25 times. If I have a y to the 5th here and a y on the bottom, I'm still left with 4 y's. Okay. And the square root of 25 I know is 5. Again, I'm going to take my exponent, divide it by 2. That gives me y squared. Okay, and finally, the last problem here. Again, I'm going to write one big square root. 72y to the 5th divided by 3y to the 3rd. Okay. So let me take a look here. I'll take my calculator again. Let's see, 72 divided by 3 is 24. So we have a 24. If I have y to the 5th here and y to the 3rd there, I'm still left with a y squared. Okay. So again, I'm going to take my number 24. I'm going to break it down. Oh, I guess that can be 4 times 6. That 4 is 2 and 2. That 6 is 3 and 2. So I have a pair of the number 2's. That number is coming outside. These numbers, 3 and 2, or 6, have to go back on the inside. And I'm going to take my exponent here and divide it by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is just 1. That means that there is 1 y on the outside. And that, my friends, is 15.4.